Hi there and welcome to my Media Studies evaluation. In this video I will be answering the question, in what ways does your media product use, develop or challenge forms and conventions from real media products? Firstly, we had to identify what the forms and conventions of real media products actually were, and for that we did in-depth analyses of trailers for real horror films. In the plot, we identified that the main driving force of horror films was the fear of the unknown being an antagonist that's usually supernatural or a complex character with mental issues such as being a psychopath, etc. And so that is one of the things that we tried to go for in our trailer, because that always works really well with horror films, and you rarely see a horror film without it. I don't think you do see a horror film without it. Additionally, there's lots of violence, lots of deaths, and a lot of the deaths you see are of pure characters close to the protagonist, or protagonists. Conventions of the horror genre, there are three main conventions, which are blood, violence and gore. And those are the three conventions that can immediately tell you if it's a horror film or not. There's often supernatural elements or paranormal elements, which are generally the antagonist and a driving force for a lot of plots. And in the horror genre, deaths are always really significant. Sound in the horror genre is often loud sounds and heavy bass. Normally it'll be heavy bass building up to a loud sound to allow for a jump scare, which is obviously what people go to the horror genre for scares. There's also a lot of creepy sound effects and contrapuntal sounds such as, you know, children laughing and like music boxes. Things that have connotations of happiness are used to create a really tense, disturbing atmosphere. Children have connotations of innocence, so when they're used in a horror context, it can be very disturbing. There's also a lot of creepy sound effects, such as heartbeat, heavy breathing, loud breathing, creaky doors, creaky floors. That's always common because they help build the tension that you need for a horror film and a horror trailer. When a viewer goes to watch a horror film, they always expect certain things from the film, and these things are generally death, violent, gory scenes, lots of blood, mystery, suspense, and mainly to be scared and unnerved, because that's why they go to watch a horror film in the first place. And possibly something as well that gets their blood pumping, gets their adrenaline going, really draws them in. Generally in horror films you can expect creepy locations, that's a common convention. Locations such as old abandoned mental asylums, big abandoned houses, graveyards. All these things have connotations of sort of mystery, death, suspense, and they always are associated with hauntings, which is often the driving force in a horror plot. You can generally expect as well very dark scenes with lots of blood, and when scenes are lit, they're usually lit by very small amounts of light, like from a candle or a torch, because that helps keep the spooky atmosphere going. There's often creepy props in the background that are always significant, like there's a lot of creepy dolls, and you have paintings whose eyes follow the characters as they walk past, because those kind of things build tension. When horror films and trailers are edited, there's always quick cuts, there's a lot of cross-cutting as well, and there's a lot of short shots. There's also minimal special effects for a horror film, because they're a lot easier to do on lower budgets, which makes it easier for us as media students to do something from the horror genre. Because of being students, we don't have large budgets. There's also lots of short shots and quick cuts, and they often increase in frequency and shorten in length to build up tension, leading to a big jump scare or a big action scene within the horror film. In my group's trailer, we kind of wanted to do a mix of being conventional and unconventional, because we're quite an ambitious group. We like to go against the flow and challenge conventions a lot. And so when we went for actually thinking about what storyline we wanted to do for our trailer, we ended up going for something that was a mixture of horror and sci-fi, which is something that we hadn't really seen done before. and something that was very appealing to us because me and Lester and Dom, in fact, all of us enjoy the sci-fi genre a lot. It's one of our favourite genres, and so we wanted to incorporate that as much as possible. So in that way we challenged convention because of we hadn't seen it done before. The titles in our trailer were very they were short, snappy. They got the information across that we wanted to get, which is very conventional. We also went for our titles on a black background because of black has connotations of sort of mystery, suspense and death, and so that's a common convention that we conformed to. In our trailer we also conformed in that we didn't show who the antagonist was or what the antagonist was in the trailer, but we did do point of view shots from the antagonist's point of view, because it was very kind of immersive, we felt. We were also quite conventional with our sounds, we went for the heartbeat, which is very common, and we went for heavy breathing as well, which is also very common because it helps build the tension and create suspense, which is what you aim to do in a horror trailer and a horror film. In posters for horror films, main image is always the centre focus, because that's what you're drawn to in the first place. And then the next biggest thing is the title, so it sticks in your mind. There's always a tagline, which is usually at the top of the page or underneath the title, is generally where you'll find it. And that's the next biggest text on the page, as well as the release date, which is usually the same size as the tagline and stands out so it sticks in your mind. There's always a credit block as well, and it contains all the necessary copyright information, actors starring in it, producers, directors, and so on. You always find that on a film poster, and it's always noticeable, but it's never really read, which is why the text is so small. In our poster, we aim to be conventional by including something significant to the plot and keeping the same kind of proportions, so the main image being the focus, the title being quite big, tagline being smaller but still big enough to read, and stuff like that. As we were pretty conventional with our poster, I don't think there's any particular areas that we could have aimed to be more conventional in, due to the fact that that was our main goal, was to be conventional, and I think we succeeded in that very well. However, there was some limitations to making our poster conventional, as we struggled a lot with none of us had any prior experience with Photoshop, which is what we were expected to use to make our poster, and so we had to kind of learn that as we went along, which made actually getting the poster done very difficult, but I think we did a good job in the end. With our magazine, we identified that similarly to the poster, the main image is always the focus, so that is always the largest thing on the magazine cover. The masthead is usually covered up slightly by the main image, but that's never usually a problem because the masthead is always recognisable. There's always a main cover line. That helps grab the viewer's attention along with the main image, which draws the viewer in the first place. There's always lots of other cover lines, usually featuring names of well-known actors or films or franchises, because of that helps the recognisability of those names, draws in more viewers and a wider range of viewers who may only be interested in that particular bit. We aim to conform to conventions for the magazines because as it was only an ancillary task, we didn't do as much research into it, and so weren't feeling as ambitious as we were with our trailer, and so we tried to conform as much as possible while still making ours stand out and making it look professional. Again, there were issues when it came to conforming to those conventions because we had to use Photoshop again, and with our very limited knowledge that we picked up from doing our poster, we definitely struggled to produce a magazine cover of high quality that we wanted to, so I think we did quite well with achieving that in the end. Additionally, it was very difficult, none of us being sort of professional photographers, it was very difficult to get a good picture for the main image because it needed to have a direct address to draw in the viewers and to conform with magazine conventions. I think we did quite well when we finally got our image, It took a while, but we got there in the end.